pleasure is one of the beauties of being a human. We have five senses and we can experience pleasure on every single one. And so doing that work, whenever we do it, is really important work because it does then impact the rest of our lives. It impacts how we feel about delivery. It impacts how we embrace this little human that comes into our life, all the ways that are unique to them, reminding ourselves that there has never been a human like this one that we just delivered. Oh, guess what? There's never been a human like me either. Right. So anyway, a lot of important things I think come up, and dealing with them, I think, is really important because it does impact the quality of your life in tremendous ways.
What if the way we prepare for birth could also prepare us for a lifetime of deeper intimacy, healing, and connection? Not just for ourselves, but for our children too. Today, we're diving into how we can raise shame free, confident children beginning at birth with one of the world's leading voices on sexual health and healing. Before we dive in, I just want to remind you that we have a childbirth class called Pleasurable Birth Essentials. So if you're looking for knowledge about pleasure, healing, intimacy, and all the basics of birth, then come find out why so many people are calling our class Birth and Life Changing. But today, I am so honored that Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers, a licensed sex and gender feminist psychotherapist, a best-selling author, a researcher, Emirati professor. She's an internationally recognized expert in sexual therapy, spiritual intimacy, parenting, medicine, and social justice, whose work has been featured in Spirituality and Health, Refining 29, Bus magazines, and dozens of other podcasts, radio, and TV outlets. She's the author of groundbreaking books, Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, and Shameless Parenting. And she's known for her revolutionary work uncovering the impact of patriarchy and sexual shame on intimacy, attachment, and family life. In addition to founding the Northwest Institute on Intimacy, she recently launched Inanna Rising, a private membership community supporting psychedelic assisted therapists and medical providers. So, Dr. Tina, I have to say, I've been waiting for this conversation because what you're doing, your books are offering so much to what shame I feel has so much to do with how we feel about our bodies in life, but certainly in pregnancy, birth, and parenting. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm so glad to be here with you.
And as you know, we always like to begin our podcast for people that have given birth to children. And I know we all birth many things in our life, but to just share a little bit about what that personal journey was like for you. Would you be willing to share a little of that?
Sure. So we have four kids in our family, and I birthed two of them. And my oldest is 39. So it was a while ago. And I come from, which we may get into at other places, but I come from strong Swedish stock. And so I was teaching junior high at the time that I got pregnant. And I just grew this very healthy little boy. And so when it came time to deliver, we weren't entirely sure how big he was, but I was big. And so doctors were like, this might be a really big one. And of course, they did all the testing for prenatal diabetes and I mean, all that kind of stuff. Right. So anyway, he was really, as deliveries go, he was kind of fast and furious, as for a first delivery, and went into labor at 4 in the morning. And about 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, I was at 10 centimeters. So that's pretty fast movement, right?
Very
And
fast.
yeah. And I will confess, I don't know if this is a confession or a celebration, depending on where you fall, but I was very clear that if it got to a particular point, I was gonna go for an epidural. That's like, I am all about being strong and doing whatever, but I also do not like severe pain, and I knew that about myself. And so we went ahead when the contractions were really severe, getting an epidural, and so that was because I was already, I think, at, I don't know, 4 or 5 centimeters when I got to the hospital. So we moved from 5 to 10 in just a couple of hours. And so it was pretty intense. They were one on top of each other. So I got the epidural, was so grateful for, wow, I could watch the contractions happen. Right. And then they're like, okay, you're at 10, you're ready to go deliver this little infant. So they turned down the epidural. I pushed for 3.5 hours. And my beautiful son, who they first had to try, like, the suction cup to get him out, and then the doctor, my husband told the story of my doctor going flying across the room because the suction cup came off his head, and he was on a rollers,
Oh my goodness.
and so then they put the tongs in, and then they managed to get him out, and he was 10.5 pounds. And so I thought, "Okay, delivery is a big deal. It is a big deal." And but he was healthy, he had bruises on his face, which, healed up very quickly and healthy, but I just had to shake my head. My next one was 3 pounds less than that. So he just completely got my body ready for delivering a very large, and he's been a very healthy, a very delightful human my whole life, but that was a good beginning. And here's the one of the my favorite parts of the story is that he was due 5 days before Mother's Day, and he actually came at 10:30 in the morning on Mother's Day. So he made me a mother on Mother's Day, and he did it in the morning, which was very kind of him since it was not going to be a very fun ordeal, as it were. It was a it was labor. It really was. It was something that took all my concentration and effort, and yeah. So there's my first birth story.
Well, thank you for sharing and how powerful and beautiful. And I love that it's Mother's Day.
I know. I know. Yeah, which was kind of a joke in our family because it meant that every 7 years or so, he was sharing his birthday with me, with Mother's Day. And the last one of the times it happened when he was growing up was like he was 17, and he was just like, "Okay, what do we have to do? What do I have to do, today to that's kinda can honor Mother's Day, but give me free?" And I'm like, "All right, we'll go to brunch, and then you can like have your day." And then people were asking him what he was gonna do with his life, whatever. People always ask seniors or people are going to be seniors in high school. And he thought, "Oh, this was painful." And I just laughed at him like, "Honey, you just get to do this the rest of my life every 7 years or so." But of course, now we share it with the mother of his children. So it's a wild day, and I'm happy to see them anytime in May.
Yes. So beautiful, right? It's so interesting how cycles come around. And that kind of leads me into the next question for you, Dr. Tina. So many people believe birth and sex are completely separate. Obviously, we don't here, but I know how can embracing kind of that sexual awareness and pleasure during pregnancy and tying it in to how can reducing shame actually help people prepare for birth and enhance the birthing experience?
That's such a beautiful question, and it's complex in so many ways. We're going to be learning a new relationship with our bodies as we go through pregnancy. We become parents, I say, the minute we find out that we're pregnant, we are aware that we are growing a human, and that's a big deal. But also, our body is going to change in that time. I know how often I hear people say, "Gosh, my clothes got tight so fast. Like, what was that about? This baby isn't, you know?" And I'm like, "Well, your intestines, which are 20 feet long or so, are going to increase in circumference by a third. So that's all happening from your belly button down, that this is soaking up. It's so there's more surface area so that the body can absorb more nutrients, right? And so that's part of what's going on. So your body is changing from the minute you get pregnant, right? But living in a culture like ours that has, for the most part, no comprehensive sexual health or relationship health, emotional health education, We do not have that in our schools. And most parents really didn't get it either. So they don't know how to do it. They're just kind of scared of all the topics. We we get our education, if you will, from media and from what the media is teaching us and our friends. So for women, that's a lot of this is it, my body's not good enough. Whatever it is, it's not good enough. If we make you feel badly about yourself, you're going to spend more money, and that drives our economy. It's unfortunate because it's exploitation at a very fundamental level, but we may start to really, in one place, we might notice this in many places. But for example, when we're trying to find the right outfit for a particular something, or we're with somebody else who we think has a more, I don't know, esteemed body shape by our culture than what we have, whatever, we're going to be in these critical spaces. But then I think as we're growing a baby, we're often caught between, especially if we're excited about our pregnancy, between really feeling honored to have the opportunity to grow a human inside our own bodies. And not everybody gets to do that who wants to. And so we can feel really grateful for that. And then find ourselves struggling with, well, what happens when I lose my waist? Can I embrace this body? Can I see myself as sexy? Can I see myself as desirable? Have I ever saw myself as sexy or desirable? And what if what I was learning from culture really impeded my ability to see myself as desirable? And yet here I am now in this place where I am both growing a human, an incredible thing for some people to be sort of invited into that experience, right? And rubbing up against what culture has been telling me my whole life. Research shows us right now that we have 50% of 6-year-old girls, two-thirds of 9-year-old girls, and 90% of 15-year-old girls who are modifying their diets because they have already learned by 6 that they're not good enough the way they are. And so this goes back for us often very far. But like your question kind of suggests, we often are revisiting shame as our bodies are changing, and we're trying to understand what are the stories I've made up about, is a pregnant woman beautiful? Is a pregnant woman sexually desirable? Can I embrace that? Have I ever embraced that? Do I see myself as someone who deserves pleasure? Just for myself, let alone sharing it with somebody else. These questions emerge often in pregnancy. They're very normal and they're not easy to talk about, to find out who can I talk to about it, and to get comfort around it. And so I'm so grateful for what you do, because I know in the work that I've done in my life, helping people come to a place where they can begin shedding some of the shame, embracing the body that they have, being grateful for the fact that having a body means I get to love. Like I get to hug, I get to express what my heart wants to do, right? And feeling pleasure is one of the beauties of being a human. We have 5 senses and we can experience pleasure on every single one. And so doing that work whenever we do it is really important work because it does then impact the rest of our lives. It impacts how we feel about delivery. It impacts how we embrace this little human that comes into our life, all the ways that they are that are unique to them, reminding ourselves that there has never been a human like this one that just we just delivered. Oh, guess what? There's never been a human like me either. Right? So anyway, a lot of important things I think come up, and dealing with them I think is really important because it does impact the quality of your life in tremendous ways.
Thank you. And those statistics you shared, you saw my expression. My heart just hurts because I didn't realize to the extent and how young 6-year-old
Yes.
girls, right?
Yeah.
9-year-olds, like this is imprinted in people that have female bodies so, so young. Hey, listeners, are you ready to transform childbirth into an empowering, pleasurable, joyful experience? My online course, Pleasurable Birth Essentials, gives you the tools and confidence to make labor something to celebrate. You'll learn comfort techniques, Embrace your body's natural rhythms and discover the secret to an orgasmic birth. Join thousands of parents on this life-changing journey. To learn more, go to www.orgasmicbirth.com/pleasurable-birth-essentials. That's orgasmicbirth.com/pleasurable-birth-essentials. Embrace your birth, embrace your power. Could you share, and I know your books and your work have many, but what would be one tip for someone listening? How, if they're feeling that shame, maybe they identify that they've been carrying it from a very young age and now they're pregnant. What's one thing that they could begin with?
Right. I love that question because it's a very practical question. Like, where do I begin? Where do I start? If I've been getting these messages my whole life from media and then whatever I got from my family or my community or my church or wherever, how do I begin this process? Such a good question. Ironically, the second book I wrote, Shameless Parenting, Everything You Need to Raise Shame-Free, Confident Kids and Heal Your Shame Too, actually has become a book that has served two purposes. One, holding the hands of parents that don't want to do to their kids what was done to them, but they don't know what to do. And that's what that book does. It literally is birth to two, two to four, four to six, and it walks you through what the behavioral tasks are that kids are often trying to accomplish naturally during those age frames, what the emotional tasks they're trying to accomplish, what behavioral things they're likely to express, and what body curiosities or human curiosities are going to emerge. And then I ask questions like, how might that be for you when your 2-year-old or year-old finds their genitals while they're getting their diaper changed or they're in the tub? And they're excited about it because it feels really good. How's that going to be for you? And I guide people through that. What I've been hearing from people since publishing that book is I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews or whatever, but I decided to get that book to reparent me and to walk myself through what I think I didn't get. And at the end of every little developmental chapter, I give the top books for kids and the top books for parents. So you can go get these at the library and literally, okay, I'm going to love up on my 2-year-old self. I'm going to read these kiddo books to me. I'm going to imagine what it might have been like if somebody had been there doing that for me and how it might have been different. And then I'm going to choose things to really start to remind myself or embrace for myself. And so with from birth to about 8, a lot of when we think of comprehensive sex education, a lot of what it is emotional and social and relational learning, how to be a kind human, how to know what kindness is, how to know what body autonomy is, who owns your body, who gets to touch it, what about other people's bodies, consent, really practical things. But this is what builds the foundation of our human relationships. Like we've got to understand how to have voice and choice and boundaries and what do I like? What don't I like? What is that person like? How are they different from me? Just all of that stuff. And so a lot of the books help kids and people have like those questions brought to them. And then you move yourself all the way up. And a lot of what will happen is you'll literally feel the shame start to drip off of you because you're like, oh, that just wasn't true what I was taught. Like I had people who loved me, but they just didn't know how to give me anything other than the shame they had gotten. And it wasn't mine to have in the first place. This belonged elsewhere. And you start learning how to love up on the younger parts of yourself and to grow yourself up. And you give yourself the education, the knowledge, and the compassion that you didn't get in all of those stages. And so it's interesting because people are using that book. And then if they do end up with kids in their lives, then they find like, oh, I know a book. I know a thing. I can, and they start. So it's really turned out to be just a wonderful book. And it's kind of written in workbook style, places where you can keep notes. And so I encourage people just go there and gently and patiently reparent yourself. Become friends with your librarian.
I love it. What a beautiful way. I like that idea of reparenting ourselves. And for everyone listening that's expecting, it's giving them the tools to not pass along the shame
Right.
that might have been handed to us. I also love how you said it's not yours, right? We're
Mhm.
taking on generations or society,
Mhm.
patriarchal systems that aren't our own. So that is beautiful. And I want to continue on, and it kind of plays into all of this that a lot of times we were talking about in pregnancy, kind of how we shed that shame and how important it is to prepare. But I want to carry this through that postpartum, right? I remember, and you probably do too, thinking about all of a sudden you had this baby and your body, at least in pregnancy, was growing life. That fullness was this
Mhm.
as a baby. But afterwards, right, we're left
Mhm.
with this changing body. And it's like, whose body is this? And
Yeah.
again, we may have challenges then with body image, with shame, and with
Mhm.
desire. So, what would be some things you could suggest for people that are going through those postpartum struggles and changes?
Gosh, such a good question. Such a good question. One of the things that postpartum, if you haven't had to confront this before then, postpartum will cause you to confront is all the shoulds that have been on you about your body, about desire, about sex and sexuality, however it is that you practice that with your partner, confronting that you are in a very different place physiologically right now. And in fact, your body is going to be in a kind of recovery stage for, I would say, at least a year, at least a year. And I would say one of the things that is complicating the recovery stage is you're often not sleeping enough, right? And sleep is really where our body restores itself. And so it is a very complex time. You're going from being an individual and perhaps a partnership into now we are an individuals, partners, and we're a family. That is a huge third job, especially with an infant, because an infant requires 24-hour convalescent care, right? And so everything feels new. You have been getting social media up the yin yang that tells you, don't do this and you better do that, or if you don't do this. And so you're feeling anxious about it. You haven't walked this path quite in this way before. So it all feels really, really new. You're not sleeping enough. Maybe you're nursing as well. A lot of things are changing, and you're trying to figure out, who am I? Where am I? Whose body is this? What do I have a right to? What don't I have a right to? Can I say I have needs while I have an infant that has needs and while I have other people in my life that have needs? It's so much to figure out. And so I really support people in having a postpartum. If they didn't have a doula before, have a postpartum doula. Have somebody in your life who's done this many times, who can provide actual support, put together a team of people that can provide support if at all possible, and then let yourself think about and put on the calendar, literally, where am I going to take care of me? Where am I going to take care of me? How am I going to take care of me? What does taking care of me look like this week? This week, this week, right? Because you're in a change place for a good year or more, figuring out what all of this stuff means. And it's overwhelming at the beginning, and it's beautiful, and it's precious, and it's all the things all at once. It's what John Kabat-Zinn calls the full catastrophe of life. And I think being a parent is the full catastrophe of life. I'll often say to the people in my life who are now bringing up the babies, right now. And I'll say, your heart moves from being inside your chest to living on your sleeve. And you're aware of that vulnerability from the beginning. You don't know what to do with it necessarily, but you're aware of it. And it feels more vulnerable in the world for you. Have people to talk to, have people just hold you, rock you, tell you that they love you, they're here with you, and you're going to get through it. And we're going to get through it as a village together, kind of a thing. But I really think all of that process is a process of kind of de-shaming ourselves too. Like, wait a minute, I deserve care. I deserve to still count in this. what are the messages I'm getting from culture and are they helping me count? I remember reading a book as my kids were growing up. It was called A Mother's Voice by Kata Weingarten. And she is a sociologist or was a sociologist at Harvard. She writes this beautiful book. She just spoke to my heart so much about the kind of conundrum that mothers are often placed in society, and yet how confusing it can also be for our kids, right? Because we're kind of invited to hide all the things we're going through and not have voice for ourselves. And anyway, it's a beautiful book. And I think that this is where having wise older women in your life can be helpful to you because they will normalize what you're thinking and feeling, and also how difficult culture has made it for women and continues to make it for women, really. Yeah.
Such beautiful advice. I can't wait to find the book. I've never heard of that. So it's going to be added to my list and resources too. So thank you. Tina, you just have so much wisdom. Is there one more nugget you'd like to share with everyone that we
Gosh,
haven't touched
yeah.
on?
I would say that if you are somebody who grew up in an authoritarian home where there were people who were right and everybody else was kind of wrong, or it was maybe a religious home that was very authoritarian, I would recommend my first book, Sex, God, and the Conservative Church. The subtitle is Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy, which is really what I hope for people is how to see their desire for connection and pleasure with themselves and with another human. That is a divine gift of how we get joy, so much joy in our life is to be truly seen, known, loved, and accepted by somebody, and to do that for ourselves as well. And our sexuality, our desire to share connection and pleasure with somebody, which is what I call sexuality. I don't call it behaviors. However you enjoy sharing connection and pleasure with someone in your life is sexuality. And if it's not doing that, then you need to examine it and make it so that it does bring more connection and pleasure to your life. That is a gift, and it needs to be something that we value and cultivate no matter how we do that. I mean, we do that in many different ways as humans, but if it gives you a feeling of being connected to somebody that cares about you, and it gives you shared pleasure, then it's going to have value in your life. There's a lot of ways we need to examine what we're doing because far too many people are having transactional sexual experiences where they're doing what somebody else wants and not what they want. And so they're being silenced, and it doesn't feel good to our heart and our soul. And so I'm often encouraging people read that first book, see what's been going on in our culture for so long, and actually how it wasn't meant to be that way, and what got lost and buried, and then how you claim it for yourself. And sometimes that just helps people see the context that they've been in and helps them go, again, it's not me. It's not mine. You know, I'll say one other thing real quickly. If anybody in your audience looks these books up and cannot afford either one, all they have to do is DM me on Instagram, and I will send them a promo code to at least get an audio version of the book. I don't want anybody to not get these books who really desire to do this work and to feel like they can't afford to get it. I want to help them get it. So I'm happy to do that for people. They just DM me. Be patient if I don't see the DM for a while, I'll see it eventually. I'm not always really good at it. But yeah, happy to do that for people.
Oh, Dr. Tina, that touches my heart. Not only do you have so much wisdom that's so valuable, I wish we had a whole nother hour to keep going, but that you make it so accessible to everyone. And we will be putting your books into the show notes so that people can find them easily. But could you also share where people can follow you, find you, DM, or any
Sure.
other offerings?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Dr. Tina Shameless. So DRTINA and then the word shameless. If you're curious about, I know you talked about Inanna Rising in my introduction. If you're curious about Inanna Rising or psychedelic assisted therapy or anything about that, you can go to Inanna, INANNA _rising, RISING _ PAT, which is psychedelic assisted therapy. And there's a little bit of an Instagram there. It's not very old because our organization isn't very old, but it's a little place for getting some information. And then there's also inannarising.org is the website. My website is my name, tinaschermersellers.com. And again, lots of free stuff there and lots of free stuff on the Instagram too. People can follow me in those places and just reach out if you have questions about anything. I'm happy to point people towards resources or whatever could be helpful in their journey to claim a full and satisfying life for themselves and for their families.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tina. Again, all of that will be in the show notes. So if you're driving or listening somewhere when you get to a safe place, definitely look below where you're listening or watching and see all those links and jump over to claim some of those free offerings too. So thank you so much again. And thank you to our listeners and viewers. We appreciate you. We encourage you, if you can, rate or review us. If you haven't yet, that really does help us show and be reached out to many more people who could benefit from this content. And we hope you'll join us next week on the next episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast.